I welcome you to the study of the sacred book, the Bhagavad Gita. I happily assume the responsibility of unfolding the meaning of the Gita's vision and its individual verses and topics. I want to state at the outset a few things you can observe for easy understanding of the subject. The Gita is an ancient sacred book which is given the status of the Vedas. If you can, look upon the book as such. Whether you look upon it as a sacred book or not, approach the Gita text and the meaning along with the commentary given with an open mind, which alone can understand what is communicated. The sanctity you attach to the Gita will help you question not the Gita but your understanding if you find the text self-contradictory or vague. This is what we call Shraddha. Vedavyasa, the author of the Mahabharata, presents the Gita in it as a dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. While doing so, he presents Krishna as the Lord. Therefore, throughout the Gita, except in one place, Krishna presents himself in this way. Therefore, the first person singular used on the part of Krishna always refers to the Lord or to his essential nature. Any historical opinion about Krishna does not alter this fact. Please, therefore, look upon Krishna in the Gita as the Lord. This is how Vyasa presents him. Whether you believe or don't believe in the Lord is to be understood with the study of the Gita. Therefore, if you are a believer, take Krishna as the Lord that you understand. If you are not a believer, you can take Krishna as a teacher and give him the chance to unfold what he has to say regarding you, the world, and God. In the method adopted in teaching Vedanta, there is always repetition. This repetition is meant to decondition our orientation with reference to the realities of life, values, and other related topics so that the vision of the Gita becomes in time a reality. Therefore, I request that you not become discouraged even if the same thing is said over and over. It is a fact known to all students of Vedanta that a given topic is understood entirely in a different dimension after listening to the topic a number of times. This is the method adopted in the Gita and in all the Upanishads. Now I invoke the grace of the Lord Krishna for the study to be complete and fruitful. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim.
Introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. It is said that a human birth is not easy to achieve. If we look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, there are millions of years between the ape and the human being. In other words, the monkey did not become a person overnight. Even from the standpoint of reincarnation, where human birth is said to be a result of one's own past actions, karma, it is not easy. And once you have this human body, whether it be due to karma or to the natural selection inherent in evolution, you are no longer in the hands of nature. You now have the rare capacity called free will to initiate a further process of evolution. The whole process then is in your own hands. An animal, on the other hand, is fulfilled once it survives a few years and produces offspring. The cow, for example, need not do anything more than reach physical maturity in order to be an adult totally. It need not do anything to be evolved emotionally. There is no such thing as an emotionally mature cow. The only goal of a cow's life is to survive to adulthood, and as an adult, to survive as long as it can. Once it has become an adult, the cow is mature in every way. A human being also has to become an adult physically. Otherwise, one's life is unfulfilled. To become an adult physically, you need only survive by appeasing your hunger and thirst and avoiding fatal accidents and diseases. You need not do anything special. The process is a very natural one, made possible by the survival instinct, so that after a few years you find you have become an adult. Until you are a physical adult, you are in the hands of nature. Nature takes care of your physical growth until you can no longer say, "I am a child." Emotional maturity, however, does not happen in the same way. Unlike physical maturity, emotional growth is purely in your own hands. Unlike a cow, one need not be mature just because one happens to have an adult physical body. Inner maturity is a process that you have to initiate because you are a human being enjoying a faculty of choice. The human pursuit. Whatever is fundamentally sought after by every human being is called Purushartha in Sanskrit. Although each individual seeks something peculiar, there are 4 ends that everyone seeks, whether he or she is an Eskimo in Alaska or someone living in a remote village in India. The universal ends most commonly sought after are security and pleasure. The remaining 2 Purusharthas, Dharma and Moksha, to be explained below, can also be accomplished by a human being. That which gives you any kind of security, emotional, economic, or social, is called Artha in Sanskrit. Artha may be in the form of cash, or liquid assets, stocks, real estate, relationships, a home, a good name, a title, recognition, influence, or power of any kind. Such accomplishments boost one's ego and therefore also provide some ego security. And although each person seeks various forms of security at a given time, that he or she is seeking security is common to all. Seeking pleasure is another Purushartha called Kama in Sanskrit. It too takes many forms. For instance, sensory pleasures may be anything from seafood or ice cream onwards. Examples of intellectual pleasures are those derived from playing certain games, solving puzzles or riddles, and studying certain bodies of knowledge. Thus, we have varieties of pleasures. Anything that satisfies your senses, that pleases your mind, that touches your heart, and evokes in you a certain appreciation is Kama. Any form of pleasure you derive from your home, for example, or from a relationship is Kama. Music and travel are also Kama and not Artha, because by pursuing them, you are seeking pleasure, not security. You do not go to Hawaii or the Bahamas to seek security. In fact, you lose some security in the form of money when you go to these places. Because you happen to have some money, you travel for pleasure, not for security. There is another form of pleasure derived from seeing the stars on a beautiful night, enjoying the sunrise, a flower, a playing child, or a beautiful painting, for example. Because this pleasure is neither sensory nor intellectual, I will call it aesthetic pleasure. Even though such pleasures go beyond one's senses and intellect, they are still karma.
Dharma as a human end. There is a third Purushartha, Dharma, that is neither Artha nor Kama. Dharma is a word with many meanings, as we shall see. Here, it refers to the pleasure born of harmony, the pleasure derived from friendship, sharing, helping another person, and so on. For example, when you are able to relieve someone's suffering, you experience a joy that is not kama. This form of pleasure is different from both artha and kama in that you do not usually seek out a person in pain in order to pick up some pleasure. It is not the same as going to Hawaii or to a concert. You happen to come across someone in pain, you are able to alleviate the person's discomfort, and you feel happy. A doctor who does not work purely for financial gain enjoys this kind of pleasure. Charity works in the same way. Those who are able to discover joy in such work do so. I would say because there is inner growth and understanding, a certain sensitivity on their part. This sensitivity is also required to understand love, for to love another person thoroughly is to understand that other person, for which one should be educated, cultured. If a person has not learned through experiences, if a person is not cultured, what kind of joy can he or she get out of life? For such people, there can be only sensory pleasures, eating, for example, but the simple joys are lacking in their lives. Thus, the gain in one's life is commensurate with what one knows. It seems that a certain professor of medicine in his introductory class said, "What your mind does not know, your eyes do not see." What he meant was that without medical knowledge, the cause for a disease will continue to elude a person even though the symptoms are everywhere. The eyes may see the symptoms, but the mind does not know. In life also, the more I know, the brighter life is, because I cannot see more than what I know. This is not to infer that I should necessarily get more out of life, only that my life is to be lived properly, fully, which implies a lot of understanding. Living does not simply mean dragging yourself around from day to day, from bed to work, back home, and to bed again, the whole process repeating itself until the weekend comes. Then you drag yourself to some recreation in the hope of forgetting yourself, which is why recreation becomes so important. In fact, your whole life can be a recreation. Someone once asked a Swami, "Swamiji, do you take any holidays? You seem to be working every day." In fact, the Swami's life is one long holiday. If you enjoy what you do, life is very simple. If you do not enjoy what you do, then you have to do something to enjoy, which can be very costly. On the other hand, any pleasure that comes out of one's maturing process is a different type of joy. Not hurting someone or doing the right thing at the right time, for instance, gives you joy, if not immediately, later. Suppose you have postponed doing something, like the laundry, vacuuming, or letter writing. The day you decide to do it, you find there is a joy in finally having done it, a joy that is neither pleasure nor security. It is just doing what is to be done, which is dharma, a very big topic that we will discuss later. For now, it is enough to know that as you grow in your understanding, your dharma also grows. These then are three of the four purusharthas, artha, kama, and dharma. Because of the importance we place on dharma, the order can now be reversed: dharma, artha, and kama. Dharma accounts for your maturity in that The more mature you are, the more dharmic you are. In order to be mature, an understanding of Dharma and conformity to it become of prime importance in one's life. Thus, Dharma occupies the first place among these three human ends. Without hurting Dharma, doing what is to be done, you pursue Artha and Kama, security and pleasure. This is how these three universal human pursuits are to be understood.
Moksha, freedom from what? The fourth Purushartha is moksha, freedom or liberation. Even though it comes last, it is a very important Purushartha, as we shall see. Moksha is recognized as a pursuit only by a very few people in any given generation. Because a certain appreciation, a certain maturity or insight about life and its struggles is required to understand moksha, people do not discerningly pursue it, although everyone is seeking freedom in fact. Although we think of freedom in a very positive way, the word moksha is actually defined in a negative sense. There is something binding you, from which you want to become free, and that freedom is moksha. We say, for example, that a man who is not in jail has freedom, whereas if he is in jail, he does not. Because he cannot choose to come out, he has lost his freedom of mobility and wants to gain it. He wants freedom from the shackles of jail. If you're using crutches because of a leg fracture, you want freedom from the crutches. Similarly, an infant requiring the help of the wall, a mother's hand, in order to stand, wants to be free of the wall or the hand, and therefore strives to stand on his or her own. Freedom, then, is always freedom from something. Moksha means freedom from something I do not want. And because moksha is a purushartha, a human end common to all, wanting to be free is not peculiar to me alone. Everyone wants to be free from certain things that are common to all. That I am attached to particular forms of security, artha, reveals a certain fact about myself, that I am insecure. That I also seek pleasures, kama, reveals that I am restless, that I am not satisfied with myself. I have to do something in order to please myself, which means that I am displeased with myself. If you are always seeking security and pleasure, when will you make your life? When will you be ready to say, I have made it? Only when you see yourself as secure and are pleased with yourself. Then you are free, you have moksha. Moksha does not mean salvation. In fact, there is no word in Sanskrit for salvation, which is just as well, since salvation implies a certain condemnation of yourself. It implies someone has to salvage you, has to save you, which is not what is meant by moksha at all. The word moksha refers only to the freeing of myself from certain fetters. Fetters, the basic ones being the notions that I am insecure and I am displeased with myself. I must see myself as secure and be pleased with myself as I am. Only then do I have moksha. If I am secure and pleased with myself, what situation is going to change that? I require no security or situational change whatsoever in order to be secure and at peace. This should be understood well. You spend your entire life manipulating the world in order to please yourself. In the process, you find that 2 hands and legs, 5 senses, and a mind are not enough to contend with all the factors involved. Your mother has to be pleased, and your mother-in-law can never be pleased. There are just too many events and situations, as well as natural forces, over which you seem to have no control.
Freedom is freedom from seeking. With my limited powers and limited knowledge, I find that I can never measure up to the demands of gaining the securities and pleasures that I seek. This is why life seems to be a problem. Only when you reach 39 or 40, when you undergo what is sometimes referred to as the midlife crisis, do you begin to understand this. Even though you may think your marriage or your job is your crisis, you are the crisis in fact. Your crisis has nothing to do with marriage or any of the other situations in your life. Your tendency, however, is to find a scapegoat for every problem you have, and the immediate scapegoat available is often your partner in life. When we look into our various pursuits, artha, kama, and even dharma, we find that what we really seek is none of these. We seek only freedom from being a seeker. Everyone is a seeker, pursuing artha and kama mainly, and to some extent dharma. But ultimately speaking, everyone is seeking only moksha. Therefore, moksha alone is the real end. In other words, freedom from being insecure is what we seek when we seek security. By going after certain securities, I am not really seeking the securities themselves. I am seeking freedom from being insecure. This distinction should be clearly understood. The shift in emphasis that this distinction represents is what we call learning. Seeking security is very natural. For an uninformed person, one who does not think about or understand his or her own ideas and urges, security is a particular thing and is always taken to be outside oneself. That I am insecure is a totally accepted conclusion for such a person, a conclusion that is never doubted or questioned. Various philosophies have arisen from this insecurity. One person says, for instance, that money will not give you security, while another person says it will, but only here on earth, not later. Later security, we are told, can only be gained by doing certain prescribed acts. Thus, we have varieties of religions and philosophies, all of which have been born out of accepting that I am insecure and that security is something outside of oneself. Even as a child, one's security depends on the constant availability of protection, love, and care of one's parents. Once the child has grown up, the parent's security depends on the attention of the child. Parents often feel neglected by their grown-up children who are now occupied with their own lives. Once a child has grown up, security is no more in the parents. It lies elsewhere.
That I lack is the problem. As a child, I was insecure, and now also I am insecure. There is a constant shift in what I take to be securities, which is considered to be a normal life for everyone. No one, however, deserves to have this problem. Security is not the problem. That I lack something is not the problem. The problem is that I lack. The difference must be seen clearly. What I lack is always variable. I lack iced tea, I lack children, I lack a house. What one lacks is always peculiar to the individual at a given time and place, in one's own life, and this differs from individual to individual, from culture to culture. However, that I lack is common to all and is entirely different from what I lack. I may lack a healthy body, a taller body, a thinner body, a turned-up nose, longer eyelashes, or a different skin color. And this may only be the beginning of an endless list. For instance, what can you do if your height is less than what you would like it to be? The most you can do is to wear high-heeled shoes, which does not really make you any taller. In fact, in the eyes of others, you may be shorter. It is only when you are being recruited for a basketball team that anyone else thinks about your height. Height is your complex. I do not think about your height until you get into high-heeled shoes and try to walk. Only then do I see your height because you have drawn my attention to it, and I immediately cut it down by a few inches. I may actually reduce it more than the actual height of your heels. You not only fall short of my expectation, but also you become shorter than what you really are. Thus, if you have a complex with reference to your height, you are stuck. If you wear a wire or something stretchable, your height could be increased, but here no stretching is possible. Similarly, there are a lot of things that you are stuck with because the things you are not, known and unknown, are countless. And what you lack, you can never totally fulfill. The more you go after what you lack, the more you breed what you lack, because what you lack has a knack of multiplying itself. It is like going to the supermarket to pick up a few things you lack and coming home with a few desires to be fulfilled when you get your following week's paycheck. This is why we say, desire is like fire that leaves a black trail after itself. No matter how much you feed it, fire never says enough. Similarly, human beings can never say enough to securities and pleasures.
Insecure plus insecure is not secure. When then are you going to completely fulfill your arthas and kamas? I am not saying you should seek out security. That is not the emphasis here. We are only trying to understand the very pursuit itself. Money definitely has its value, but if you think that there is security in money or in anything else, the process of seeking becomes endless. The insecure me, the one who wants to be secure, does not really become secure by the addition of what I consider to be securities. No one can say I am secure even with all possible securities, although one is secure in fact. As long as I require crutches, the sense of insecurity centered on me will remain with me. Feeling secure because I have crutches does not mean I am secure. I feel secure only because of the crutches, whereas the sense of insecurity centered on me remains. Suppose I am insecure and what I think is secure is as insecure as I am. For example, if one insecure person marries another insecure person, in order to be secure, the result is not security. All that results is a marriage between two insecure people. Can there be a greater hell anywhere? When two such people come together, it is a problem because insecurity plus insecurity do not make security, only double insecurity. There is a story about a man who, as he was bathing by the side of a river, slipped and was swept away by the current. Because he could not swim, he prayed, "O Lord, please help me." Just then a log came along, and catching hold of it, the man said, "My God, God is great." Then he realized that the log had fur on it and hands also. He had thought he was holding on to a log, but now he realized that the log was holding on to him. Still, he thought that the Lord was saving him. He found, however, that the Lord was a grizzly bear, that having fallen from a tree had also been swept up by the current. Once he realized he was holding on to a bear, he wanted to escape, but the bear already had too tight a hold on him.
Who holds on to what? Similarly, you do not know which holds what or who holds whom. You may have thought you were holding on to something, only to find that you cannot give it up, which means that it is holding you. This is a problem. Any habit is the same. An alcoholic was once a free person. When he or she took the first drink, the person poured the alcohol into the glass and then, holding on to the glass, drank from it, no problem. However, after some time, the person finds that he or she does not drink at all. As soon as happy hour arrives, the bottle tells the person, "Come here," and he or she goes like a zombie. Then the bottle says, "Come, pick me up," and the person picks it up. "Come on, pour me into the glass, drink." And the person drinks. Then, one more. Who is this person now? The one who was previously free. Does he or she drink, or does the drink drink the person? In so many situations, no one knows who holds on to what. I see no difference between the grabber and the grabbed, the holder and the held. If even inert things like drinks, cards, or dice have the capacity to grab me, to say nothing of relationships, since people are equally insecure. Therefore, an insecure me plus anything in this world that happens to be within the framework of time is not going to make me secure. This we should understand well. We are not trying to develop a particular attitude here, just a simple appreciation of the fact.